I'm not here to be palatable. I'm here to be free. There's a quiet rage that comes from living in a world that expects you to be both sick and silent. A rage that builds every time you're told to smile through it, shrink for comfort, apologize for the impact of your survival. And this chapter right here is not an apology. This chapter is a declaration. It's a rebellion. It's to reclaim what society tried to take, your self-worth, your voice, your autonomy. It's about choosing yourself in a culture that dares to call you selfish for doing so. It's about saying F society and actually meaning it, not with cruelty, but with clarity. Because when society fails to make room for you, you don't shrink, you expand. Now, let's break it down a little bit and talk about the myth of being too much. So, the label that we carry, so many of us carry, is the label of too much. Too loud, too sensitive, too angry, too opinionated, too difficult, too demanding. What they really mean is, you made me feel uncomfortable by existing outside the script I expected you to follow. Run that back. You made me feel uncomfortable by existing outside the script I expected you to follow. F that noise. You don't fit the mold. You're not soft in ways that benefit them. You aren't sick and silent. You're aesthetic, okay, all right. I'm getting even more rageful. You aren't sick in the silent, aesthetic way they were romanticized. You disrupt the illusion of control by surviving what they pretend not to see. Because you aren't too much. You are more than what they're used to accommodating. And that is not a flaw. That's the revolution. Because what society demands, what society asks for the kind of disability that doesn't make waves, is to be inspirational, but not inconvenient. Be resilient, but never complain. Be quiet, be grateful, be small. But when you stop apologizing for your needs, when you ask to be believed, accommodated, respected, that's when society calls you difficult. They make mistakes. Oh my goodness, hold on. They mistake your boundaries for audacity, and oh my goodness, your clarity for a threat. Because what they call too much is exactly what this world needs. Truth tellers. Boundary setters, survivors who refuse to be silenced, because we are turning that too much into power. What if you stop trying to shrink? What if your sensitivity was your superpower? What if your anger was sacred? What if your refusal to bend became a blueprint? Because here's the secret. Society only shames what it fears, and they fear you because you mirror back everything they've been taught to repress. So let your too muchness be your mirror. Let that be a megaphone. Let it be the catalyst that breaks the old stories, because you were never meant to fit in. You were meant to wake people up. Okay, so let's talk a little bit about internalized and ableism first, because it's a long road of unlearning. Before we can say F society, we have to really be honest about how deeply society lives inside us. Internalized ableism is the quiet voice that whispers, you should be able to do more. You are just lazy. You are faking it. If you tried harder, you'd be better. It's the shame that creeps in after you cancel plans. The rest, oh goodness gracious, the guilt for resting, the panic of needing help. It's not your fault, but it is your inheritance. It's passed down in silence, through institutions, through advertising, through the way that your pain is dismissed over and over and over until you start dismissing it yourself. Now, how ableism becomes an identity, because it doesn't just live in policy and prejudice. It colonizes your sense of self. You begin to see yourself as broken instead of brilliant, as a burden instead of a whole human. You internalize that myth that value comes from productivity, beauty, and conformity. And the worst part, you start performing for survival. We've talked about this before. You smile when you're hurting. You downplay your reality. You say I'm fine because it's easier than being doubted. It becomes literally a full-time job just to seem quote-unquote normal. And we're all feeling the same way. We're all just faking it all the way through. So why fake it when we can actually be honest with ourselves? But I also understand the rage beneath the shame, because underneath all this internalized shame, there's that rage. It's sacred. It's necessary rage. Rage of the doctors who didn't believe you. Rage of the friends who disappeared. Rage of the systems that made you feel like healing was a solo mission. You gotta let yourself feel it. Don't spiritualize it anyway. Don't pretty it up. Rage is a teacher. Rage is a mirror. And rage is clarity. You don't owe anyone your quiet compliance, especially when that quiet is actually killing you. So unlearning unlearning internalized ableism, it's not a one-time act. It's a daily reminder. It's tender. It's brutal. And it means practicing self-compassion like it's a revolution. Catching the inner critic and asking, who taught you to speak to me that way? Choosing rest before collapse. I keep repeating the same thing because it's still freaking true. Naming your needs out loud. That's a big one. That's a big step up of unlearning. And also refusing to apologize for existing differently. You stop looking for a cure and start looking for liberation. You stop aiming to be better instead of being... and instead begin honoring the full truth of who you are. Once again, mistakes and all. And that's the most radical healing of them all. Because cultural gaslighting and the lie of normalcy isn't something just individuals do. It's embedded in the culture. It happens when your pain is questioned, your symptoms are minimized, and your truth is rebranded as drama, exaggeration, or even attention-seeking. Cultural gaslighting teaches us not to trust ourselves. It whispers that what we feel isn't real unless somebody validates it. And when you live with a chronic illness, you hear it constantly. Oh, everyone's tired. Oh, but you look fine. Maybe it's just stress. Are you sure it's not in your head? And these aren't just comments. They're systematic strategies to control, dismiss, and erase. They turn your body into a courtroom where you're both a defendant and evidence, forced to prove that what you already know is true. Quote-unquote normal is the most effective gaslighting tool of them all. Because who really defines what's normal? A capitalist system built on productivity? A media industry profiting from insecurity? A healthcare system that only believes if your test results say something's wrong? Normal is a moving target designed to keep you chasing. But the truth is, there's no such thing. Quote-unquote normal, it's not a moral standard. It's a myth, a method of exclusion, a way to pretend that the only kind of body it's a way to pretend that there's only one kind of body, only one kind of mind, only one kind of life that deserves ease. And when you can't meet it, you're expected to disappear or even, contort yourself trying. So to survive, many of us have become survivors. Once again, smiling through pain, dressing up our exhaustion, laughing when we really want to cry. We do it to make others comfortable, to protect relationships, to avoid scrutiny, but the cost is so freaking high. Masking robs you your authenticity. It fragments your sense of self. It teaches you that survival requires performance and not presence. And eventually, you'll start losing track of not only where the mask ends and you begin, but who you truly are. So unmasking isn't just about showing others the truth. It's about remembering it for yourself. You don't have to prove your pain. You don't have to beg for belief. You don't have to mask to matter. Because cultural gaslighting thrives in silence, so we name it. And we say, yeah, I'm tired, but this isn't regular tired. Yeah, I look fine, but my body's fighting all the time. I know it's not in my head. It's in my muscles, my bones, my blood, my being. Just say and speak your truth. We stop waiting to be believed and start trusting ourselves. That doesn't mean shutting out care. It means putting your inner knowing at the center, not as society's definition of what's real. Because the more you name it, the more the lie loses power. You become I love this word now. You become ungaslightable. Okay, and remember that rest is radical, because in a world that links value to output, choosing to rest is an act of resistance. And we've talked about it in previous chapters, and I'm always going to tell you that rest is radical. Okay, it's not a reward. It is radical. F hustle culture. Redefine your worth. But yeah, so this chapter oh my goodness gracious, this whole video began with rage and it still kind of feels it. But you know what? It ends with reclamation. You've seen what society does to those who don't confirm. You felt its cold shoulder, its judgment, its gaslighting. But you know what? You are still choosing you. You choose honesty over politeness. You choose your own pace over their approval. You choose presence over performance. So yeah, F society standards, F their timelines, F their discomfort. You are not too much. You are not a burden, because you're not broken. You know what? You're complex, sacred, sexy, necessary. I said what I said. You are worth it and then some. And that right there, exactly the way you are right here, right now, today, as we speak, you are enough, and you've always have been and you always will be. Thank you so much for listening. Once more, hug tighter, love stronger, always believe, know your worth.